Much to talk about the economic reality and the political fallout. First, to Peter Schiff, CEO of Europe Pacific Capital. Peter, your take?
Of course, Mitt Romney is absolutely right that a significant percentage of President Obama's voters have, in fact, been bought or paid for. You know, they now depend on the welfare state because of the adverse effects that it's had on the economy and the perverse effects it has on individual incentives. Government programs breed dependency.
All right,
and, Romney is right. He's not going to be able to explain that in a 30-second soundbite.
All right, I have some numbers on that, though, Peter, because let's focus on, number one, the percentage of Americans who do not pay any net federal income tax. I'm not going to get into the payroll tax. I'm not going to get into state taxes, sales taxes. But of that percentage, a lot of them don't pay federal income tax because of tax breaks that they get, say, for having children. And in that group, they're bound to be Democrats and Republicans. It's a legitimate issue to raise that more people need to pay federal income tax to fund just our defense, for example, but it's not going to win you an election when you talk about taking something away from people.
Well, I'd say that Obama is going to win the lion's share of the vote among people who aren't paying income taxes. After all, if your message is lower taxes and you're not paying any income taxes, what do you care? All you hear about is that's going to reduce my benefits. And most of the people who are not paying income tax because they have children, it's because they're relatively poor. I mean, if you're upper middle class or even middle class, your children aren't going to eradicate your tax liability. You have to have a pretty low income before just having children is going to completely eliminate your federal tax liability. But a lot of people are getting checks from the government, whether it's food stamps, whether it's welfare, whether it's Social Security, whether it's a pension, whether it's a paycheck. And it's difficult to win the votes of these people if you're promising to take those checks away or diminish those checks, and you don't have the ability to educate them so that they understand that they would be better off in an economy that didn't have all those checks coming from the government. So Romney is correct. He has to focus on different voters.
The 49% of Americans who get some sort of government assistance, federal government assistance, and that does includes everybody in a household, but it also includes people who get Social Security checks and Medicare checks. And again, to the point, because in many ways, Paul Ryan's, the nitty-gritty of his plan to try and reduce our spending and cut our debt has been sidelined. To that point, you cannot win a presidential election, yes or no, if you're going to target these entitlements that both Republicans and Democrats get.
Yeah, that's the problem you have with democracy. I mean, the late Harry Browne, I think, said it best. He said the government is an expert at breaking your leg and then handing you a crutch and saying, see, without me, you couldn't walk. And it's difficult for Romney to explain to the people who are now hobbling around on crutches that the government broke their leg before it handed them that crutch. And so he needs to tell a free market story, which is more nuanced and more complicated than you can get into a 30-second soundbite. But, you know, the Democrats are going to try to make it out like Mitt Romney doesn't care about people who are living off the government. He cares about them. He just understands that getting their vote is going to be difficult. And if he wants to be president, he has to appeal to people who are paying federal income taxes and who are feeling the burden of a big government and are more likely to accept his message of making government smaller.
Yes or no, before these problems are fixed, it's going to take a crisis of catastrophic proportions in terms of runaway inflation and higher interest rates. Yes or no?
Well, fortunately, we're going to get that catastrophic crisis. The Federal Reserve has now guaranteed it with its Operation Screw, otherwise known as QE3. So this is coming. We're going to have this crisis, and hopefully we do have an opportunity to do the right thing, because believe me, it's going to be horrific when the bond market collapses, the dollar collapses, prices go through the roof. Nobody wants that money that the Federal Reserve is printing, and then we have a real crisis that will make 2008 look like a Sunday school picnic.
That was a good yes or no answer, Peter. Thank you, Peter Schiff. We'll see you soon. Be well.
All right, more on all this.